We are moving through menopause still, and so
Yes,
welcome to the podcast. It's
thank you.
wonderful to have you with me virtually, and so
Likewise.
thank you so much. So we're having a wonderful chat today about menopause in the workplace, and I'm really looking forward to diving into this with Dinah. But let's first of all give you a proper introduction. And so, welcome to you, Dinah. Dyna Vink is a certified health and nutrition coach, and a little bit like myself. She was getting some advice from various professionals that didn't really sit very well with her. And so, what do you do under those circumstances? But you become your own advocate and find out as much as you possibly can about what's going on with your body. And so that's entirely what she did. And so she studied the subjects around the aging process and figured it out for herself, which is, a relief, I must say, because it's a terrible thing when you're struggling with your health and really not just feeling like you're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And so now, you've turned your hand to helping other women who encounter these problems around the time of menopause with lifestyle approaches. And this is really the thing that I love. And that's not to say that medication doesn't play its part, because indeed
Yep.
it does. And
Yeah.
it does for me too. But I think that, if there's one thing that we are in control of, it is our lifestyle. And so,
That's right.
but you know what? Not quite so much at work. This is, it's harder at work, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and it's one of these taboo subjects, it's
Mm.
if the medical profession isn't really talking about it, and if, in the public, we aren't really talking much about it, then it's no surprise that in the workplace you won't be talking about it. And certainly, my experience, I was working in corporate in high tech, and there, any sign of weakness is a bad thing. So, especially if you're a woman, and in tech, it tends to be pretty highly male dominated. Most of the companies that I worked at were sort of 80 or 90% male. So these things don't occur to them. It's even the whole business of maternity and paternity leave was a big revelation for them, because most of them tend to be younger anyway, right? And so this whole business of physicality is not on their minds. So, just like you said, I had to do it myself. And what I ended up doing was leaving corporate life, where age became a liability for me, um, especially with the younger population. And I moved into this coaching area where my age is now, works for me, because I'm 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 living the dream, right? It's
Well, yeah, I
so
mean,
yeah.
that's right. If ever this was an advantage, it is when we're
Yep.
talking to this, because it is, and for me, even as a paramedical professional, menopause was not on my radar until it came and smacked me in the face.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that that is the case, and I really would like for that to change. But we're quite a long way off that yet. Let's help the people who are currently struggling with the menopause. But for us to be, I expected hot flushes, and actually that was the one symptom that I didn't really struggle too much with. But I tell you what, Dinah, I had all the others.
It's a long list.
It's quite a long list. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
so, did you experience, discrimination in the workplace? Would you go so far as to call it that?
Well, that's hard to say, because I was working hard to cover it up.
Mm,
And so what it certainly did is it prevented me from going for a promotion.
Ah,
And that was self-inflicted, right? I mean, there was nobody that told me I
mm,
shouldn't do this or whatever. But when I started getting brain fog, and I had all this joint pain, and I started losing confidence in
mm,
my abilities.
mm,
And my doctor, just like you said, my doctor was basically telling me that I was fine or that I was crazy, one of the two. And, you know, um, she also tried to body shame me, and
mm,
eventually she gave me HRT, synthetic HRT. So I thought, okay, this should help, but it didn't do anything for me.
mm.
It didn't address any of my symptoms.
Wow.
And the hot flushes were getting to be pretty intense. So by myself, I said, okay, I need to fix this. And so I sort of developed a few self strategies where I traded work areas with somebody. And
Mm,
so I had better control over the heating and the cooling. So that was important. And I also didn't really want to go on trips as much anymore,
mm,
because you have no control over the environment. You have no control over the food anymore,
mm,
and your sleeping arrangements are, unknown. So all these things would conspire in a way where it became a bit of an issue.
mm,
And so then in 2008, I guess, during the big financial crisis, I lost my job again. I mean, in tech, you only get to stay for 2 or 3 years, and then you're
yeah,
you're in another company. So after that, I went into a not-for-profit, and that was operated by a wonderful woman a couple of years older than myself, and she was totally on board, right? We were in the same boat. We had a lot of the same symptoms, and she was
yeah.
totally wonderful. And so we figured things out. But certainly
No,
in corporate life, it's
yeah.
difficult.
So Laura very kindly let us know that she agrees that women are left to navigate without much sympathy medically or professionally. And,
Yeah,
she's absolutely right. But I think it is a little bit the luck of the draw. Like
yeah,
like you
yeah,
just said, you happened upon somebody who was sympathetic. And
yeah,
that's it's nice that that happened for you,
yeah,
but it's not necessarily going to be the case, and it can be a little bit left to chance whether or not this happens for people, rather than it being the norm
yeah,
to get help. So
yeah,
yeah, and it's really not funny. People, Laura's back, and she's, it's really not a joke. It's really not funny that, it's bad enough that you're questioning yourself,
yeah,
and then the fact that you are, you're not really being taken seriously as a
yeah,
human being because of the fact that your body is playing havoc, your
yeah,
biochemistry is playing havoc with your mind.
yeah,
It's a very real physical effect of the declining estrogen levels, the brain fog, the cognitive processing is definitely it's a physical manifestation, and
hmm
then not an intellectual problem at all. So but this is something that we're really up against, aren't we?
Well, it's true. And on from a male perspective, they tend to listen to logic more than
Oh,
emotion,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, I've worked most of my career with mostly men. So I've thought, okay, let's bring that thinking into the discussion. And so if the business case is made that there are
Mhm,
almost 50% of women in the workforce now, it's almost, it's getting close to that. There will be a large number of them that are in perimenopause and menopause.
mhm,
So if you're intent on getting good productivity from them, if you're intent on using their experience and their skill sets, then the only logical thing is to make it easier, make it address the issues so that you can benefit from all that experience.
Mm,
And when you're looking at the upper echelons of leadership, this becomes a terrific problem.
mm,
When you're, if you think about the brain drain that happens from the senior ranks with women, then it's it's not um, it's not hard to imagine how much menopause would play in that role.
mm,
So if companies are looking to increase their diversity in the workforce, then this is a very straightforward way to do it.
mm,
And initially they did this by talking about maternity and paternity programs.
mm.
And so now that's an accepted policy in most workplaces now,
Yeah.
and most countries have legislation about this in the labor code.
Mm,
So we've done it before. It's not like this is a completely new thing. And if we bring change management thinking into into this,
mm.
this is certainly a very doable objective. And I think that by getting the conversation going and making some reasonable requests, that it's certainly a very achievable goal.
And, and certainly in the current climate, that over the last 18 months, changes in the workplace, exponential change has occurred, you
It's
know,
true.
and that happened, didn't
Yeah.
it? Because
Yeah.
it had
Yeah.
to. So
Because it had to. Yeah.
exactly. So we've experienced the fact that this is possible,
Yeah.
and making allowances for people who have health issues, are unable to
Yeah.
be together in the workplace, need to continue at home, whatever. And now the fact that people have experienced these varied working opportunities, lots of people are enjoying the flexibility that this presents, and not the least of all women. And I was reliably informed that some of my colleagues of my age are sitting at the desk with nothing on apart from their underwear underneath the desk, because they can when they
Yeah.
sit at home. But
Yeah.
obviously, not everybody can be working from home, and that there are necessary adjustments in the workplace. Things. So do you have any thoughts around what sort of solutions might have helped you or may help women to remain productive in the workplace through this midlife period?
Yeah. So a couple of key things is first of all to itemize what the problems are, right? So if you've got some symptoms that don't bother you at work, then leave them off the list. But
Mhm.
there's some that are very troublesome, like for instance, interrupted sleep.
Oof.
So if interrupted sleep is a problem and you have to wake up early to go to work, then that might impact your performance. So if it's possible to arrange to come in late and make up the time at another, when it works, then that might help a lot with the sleep factor. But otherwise, it's a matter of getting your seating arrangement comfortable. So if that means bringing in a little fan, that would help. And your employer doesn't probably need to know much about that unless you're uh, working in a cashier role or something in
Yeah,
public.
yeah,
You'd have
no,
to probably aim the fan in
away
in a
from the
discreet
money.
yeah, in a discreet way, so you're not blasting your customers.
Yeah.
There would be other things like being able to work from home on certain days. So in the lead up to menopause, there can be some very challenging flow days with
Oh, yeah,
menstruation.
yeah, yeah.
And I've heard, so it didn't happen to me, but with some ladies, they have such a heavy flow that they have to replace their pads and tampons every hour.
Mm.
And then there's this threat of leakage and all the stress of it all. And then you'd say, well, maybe you should stay home today and just get that sorted out. So that would be something that you could negotiate. Um, there's there's also the matter of if you are taking medication, you may want to share that. So HRT, or some other kind of hormonal treatment, you may want to share that with your supervisor, just so that they know that you're taking it, and that there may be certain side effects. If you tell them that you're having a hot flash, and that you'll be okay in a second, but not to be alarmed. It's right. So having these discussions with your team is a really important thing. And if you have a solution, then you would offer it, but you would match it to the problem that you're dealing with, right? So you'd say, okay, I'm having these hot flashes. It's distracting me from my work. If I was to have a fan, then I would be cool. I would be able to
Mm,
carry on much more easily with my work, and that will simplify things for everyone, right? So I don't
yeah,
need any jokes or any comments about the fan, right? I'm working through this,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'd love to have your support. So so
Yeah,
you don't
these
want
are
to
hard.
open your
No, these are hard conversations for lots of
yeah,
people, aren't they? This is the
yeah,
thing that you know, we don't want to be having a hot flush in the first place. So to
no,
have to bring it out into the open and have a whole dialogue
yeah,
about it is really, it's not really what we would be wanting. But I can see that, if it's about meeting people halfway,
yeah,
is the other thing that we need to be able to broach these topics,
yeah,
and they need to be willing to hear. So it is a sort of two-way street, really, isn't it?
yeah. But there's some other things to be done on the lifestyle approach, right? So
Oh,
so there's a story that that made such an impression on me when it happened. I had called a meeting with I was a director of marketing, and I'd called a meeting with some people in some related companies to ours. So we made network access products, and there were a number of affiliates that made applications
yeah.
that companies could use. So we like to develop our trade show demos with them, because it sort of was easier to see a benefit, rather than just sticking a box on a table and
Yeah.
saying we have good products. So I was meeting with them to talk about the upcoming season of demos. And one of the things that you do to get people to come to your meetings is you bring muffins or donuts or something.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so, I've got these, well, there were 5 guys and 1 woman, there, and, so here, it's the guys that like this stuff especially. So I brought my box and, set it in the table, and so I started eating one of them, and, everyone is enjoying their muffins, and within a couple of minutes, I started, the flush. There it goes. It was just that fat, the flush, and then I'm dripping, and then the brain fog and the stress is coming on, and I'm looking around the room, and I don't even remember who these people are. Like, "What is your name again? I can't think of your name." And I'm going, "What's happening to me?" Right? I'm not functioning properly here.
Mm,
So I was able to sort of stagger through the meeting and toss out, quick requests to be okay. Describe what you've got in mind, and pull right, and so try to recover. And I thought, this is not good. So it was in a stressful situation like that, where I understood that muffins are not my friend, right? this is this is probably the last muffin I will eat. And so so understanding that there are things that you can do for yourself, and your
mm,
food choices are really important.
yeah.
So eating a breakfast in the morning that has a certain protein component and a certain vegetable component is far more helpful than grabbing a muffin and a coffee on the way to work. You know,
Mm, yeah. I think I
so
think that we can underestimate the amount to which these things contribute to
yes,
accelerating the symptoms, or
yeah,
accentuating the symptoms. But if you made, I mean, a very real connection there in a
yeah,
moment,
yeah,
a fleeting moment, and that
yeah,
obviously left a lasting impression. But for the most part, those connections are very difficult to make. That
Yes.
that you're not necessarily going to experience it. There's often a lag, so you're not always able to put two and two together.
Yes.
But the sugar definitely, and caffeine and salt, and and like you say, the being our own, helping ourselves. It is beholden upon us to help ourselves, and being our really taking some responsibility for this as well. It's kind of like I was saying about meeting people halfway, that you have a part to play in managing this situation, managing the condition.
Yes.
For the benefit, for your own benefit, as well as. Hello. Oh, sorry. Hang on. I was getting a call and I thought I'd got rid of it, but I didn't. Anyway, technology. She's gone now. So it is for us to do things to help ourselves, isn't it? As well, as you said.
Well, that's right, and these different lifestyles are a way to do that. So in the workplace there are certain things that you can do, but I think a lot of it comes down to how you manage your own lifestyle, right? So we mentioned that the sleep is super important. Using food as medicine is a super important factor. Using movement is incredibly important to keep your body functioning and to counteract the natural aging process with targeted movement.
Yeah.
And also there's the mindfulness,
Oh.
right? So you want to get off of autopilot, right? So you can't change the past that's happened. So the whole brooding on the past is not helpful, and worrying about the future is also pointless. But embracing the moment and being able to experience joy and pain and anticipation and excitement, right? Just to be able to embrace, you can only do all those things in the moment, in the present. And it takes this mindfulness in order to do that. So when you make these conscious decisions of wanting to improve your lifestyle and live your best life, those things are done through mindfulness in the present. So they help to alleviate stress. It helps to promote sleep, and it just makes you feel better. So when you embrace those lifestyle approaches, then your whole life is better, not just your work life, but just the whole business of living
Yeah.
becomes much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly the drum that I bang on a regular basis.
Mm,
That it's what you do 24 hours a day that
yeah,
makes the difference. So, okay, maybe not 24. The waking hours. People would come to me as a physiotherapist, and I say it's not what I do when you're lying on the couch for an hour. That's part of it, but it's what you then go away and do for the rest of the week ahead of you. And
yeah.
actually, my experience was of the most dreadful insomnia and terrible fatigue, and I'm quite sure the two were linked. So,
Yeah.
so what I would find is that meditation really, really helped me. But in fact, it helped me more if I did it earlier in the day than
Yeah.
if I was doing it just before bed. So often people think, oh, relaxation. If I want to sleep well, I should do relaxation just before I go to bed. But actually, if we're influencing these hormonal fluctuations, and particularly the cortisol levels that can lead to wakefulness in the night as a result of stressful experiences, then we're going to impact them more if we're doing these things earlier into the day, which, again, is harder for people who are at work. But having a boss who is maybe sympathetic to you taking a break, and you don't have to lie down necessarily to do meditation. In fact, the yoga premise is that you would sit to meditate. So you don't actually need to be lying down. Just in a quiet place on your own for somewhere in the region of 15 minutes can have a really powerful impact on getting a better night's sleep. And the other thing, of course, that I should say to that is it's kind of cumulative in its effects. So you can't just do it once and expect it to work.
No, no. Yeah. You can't just refrain from the one muffin and be saved. No.
No, this is very true. I think the biggest thing for me, is changing the dialogue around this whole experience and removing or reframing, I think were your words, the stigma around this whole topic. How do we do that? I mean, sexy celebrities getting on board goes some way to putting a face to the cause, and that's very laudable. But but for the most part, celebrities are trying to look a whole lot younger than they actually are.
Yeah. Yeah, and they spend a lot of time doing it too. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think that part of that changing the stigma is to normalize it.
Mm,
And by normalizing menopause, um, is just a matter of talking about it. So it used to be that having a baby was the end of a
mm,
woman's career,
true.
right? And
Mm,
it used to be that there was no workplace provision for having a child. It was considered the end of the line of your career, and there,
mm,
that was it. But we normalized having children, and in fact, governments have even encouraged having children. Here in Canada, there's something
mm.
called a baby bonus. So
Wow.
yeah, and so if you have children, then you can get this extra, bit of money in the month, and of course, on your taxes, you can have deduction for children. So, this has all been very normalized. So I use that as a parallel because there was this, children would be seen and not heard, and certainly the whole business of having children was not something that you really wanted to know anything about, right? That happened behind the curtain.
Mm,
Um, but now it's a very public and happy thing.
mm,
So I'm banking that we can remove some of this stigma just through normalizing it and having these conversations and demonstrating the power of what happens. So the upside of menopause is that women have time to devote to things that they didn't have time to do before, right? If
mm,
women were busy caring for small children,
yeah.
then they weren't out having, spending that time they spent with their children developing their careers or writing books or doing research or, whatever it is they were doing. So if we're able to harness the capabilities and the achievements of women in that time of their life, which is theoretically the pinnacle of their careers, then I think that starts to sound a lot more attractive to employers and to society in general.
Yeah, I mean, I as a physiotherapist in a female-dominated world is where I resided for the most part, and actually employers were kind of like, oh no, not a female physiotherapist in childbearing years, you know. So well, so they can't have it always, can they? So well, yeah. I mean, it was a challenge because when people were on maternity leave, there was never cover provided, and it was always you were picking up the slack for people. The fact that people were taking the leave, and so that could have potentially gone against you when you're applying for jobs. And now, gosh, honestly, at the other end of the scale, we're getting it from both ends, aren't we?
Yeah, from
So,
both ends. Yeah.
like we say, at least employers can look at us and say, well, at least they're not going to be taking maternity leaves. Maybe that's a good thing. And as you say, we're not partying. Well, I speak for myself. Maybe you are partying. I don't know.
Not regularly, not in the pandemic. No,
So, we're not generally burning the candle at both ends. We're in bed by
no.
10. We're
Yeah,
taking things very seriously, aren't we?
yeah, yeah,
So, they
yeah.
stand to benefit from that. Not only that, but, our life of experience. Why would you throw that away? It seems a mystery to me. But on the other hand, um, I still am very aware that even in the medical profession, there's a kind of unwillingness, or maybe just it is this embarrassment factor that when we're talking about intimate problems, and you wouldn't expect it so much in the medical profession, but it definitely is there within physiotherapy that the having conversations about anything below the waist gets a little bit embarrassing for people. And well, for us in Britain anyway, in the United Kingdom, I'm not sure if you're a bit more liberal over there in Canada, but it really is still something that is uncomfortable for people,
Mm.
to have these
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah. Well, the American Association of Retired Persons did a study not too long ago, and they confirmed a couple of really startling things. It made me feel not alone, put it that way.
Okay.
But 3 out of 4 women reported that they had not been satisfied with the help that they received from their medical provider. So that reflected certainly my experience, but I was shocked that it was so high.
Mm,
And then they probed a little bit deeper, and they determined that 80% of residents, general practitioners, and OBGYNs were not comfortable talking about menopause or perimenopause. They just weren't equipped to deal with it.
mm,
And so this was quite shocking. And, so the reason for that is that women's health is only an elective topic in medical training.
um,
So it's even though half the population has this issue, it's not mainstream. So it's not so surprising that they wouldn't have that expertise, but it does raise some questions
mm.
why it's not mainstream.
Mm.
And
With 50% of the population being women. And actually,
right,
you remind me now that it's the same for physiotherapy, that it is an elective. It isn't something, as an undergraduate physiotherapist, it isn't something that every
mhm,
physiotherapist will get to do. Now, I did a women's health, but it was, I did anti and postnatal. So again, it was a very small part really of women's health in the broadest sense. And
yeah,
so, yeah, I guess that must still be the case, that is why this persists, perhaps.
yeah, yeah. So until there's some changes to the medical profession on
Mm,
that front, redefining their
mm,
priorities
mm,
for what makes it into the mainstream program, I think this problem will persist. But I think our generation of women are far more demanding than our mother's generation.
mm. Yeah, great.
So by having this kind of conversation, we're basically pulling these medical professionals kicking and screaming into a needs-based practice, because what's happening is they're losing their credibility, they're losing um their knowledge
Okay.
base.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they aren't the people of credibility and knowledge about all things health, because they also don't know really anything about nutrition. Nutrition
Yeah.
is another part of
Mm.
the program that it's just not there. If they're lucky, they get an hour in 8 years of medical study. So um, those choices have been made, and I don't personally agree with them, but I've
No.
taken it upon myself to fill in those gaps for myself.
Well, and it's unfortunate that is what ends up happening. That because we are, you know, navigating our way through this, feeling unsupported a lot of times. And that's where people like you and I hopefully can help to fill the space that currently exists, you know, with our own experiences guiding the research that we, you know, had to do for ourselves to really survive that whole time, you know, and that was, you know, that's really how it felt for me. And we know that, you know, 25% of women will experience significant symptoms. So not every woman will be quite as desperate as I felt, but 25% still, you know, it's not an insignificant number. That maybe is struggling in silence, you know, putting on the stiff upper lip and really feeling quite desperate, you know, when behind the facade, you know, and that's horrible. That's horrible for people to be sort of living this, you know, this life where you're feeling like there's things going on that you can't talk about, or you, when you do talk about them, people think you're just totally bonkers. You know, and so know that you're not alone, because that was, you know, the biggest thing for so many people is feeling like you're some kind of an oddity because of, you know, the symptoms that are listed is not even an exhaustive list. There are symptoms outside of that maybe only 1 or 2 women will experience, unusual symptoms that can occur. I read, you know, in fact, it was one of my friends who's a nurse, and she said she had the experience of feeling like spiders were crawling on her skin.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Have you heard? Oh, you've heard that. So, but you know, that's kind of, you know, you hesitate to tell people those kinds of things, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, it is unusual. And so anyway, know that you are not alone, definitely.
And you're not crazy.
No, you're definitely not crazy. Or, you know, and actually, I did feel quite crazy on occasion. The hormonal fluctuations really messed with my mind. And, you know, it was a challenge too for me and for the people that I live with. I've said this before and I'm saying it again. Thankfully, you know, we want to end on a high. There's so much that you can do. There is so much that you can do with lifestyle. You know, this medicine, this lifestyle medicine is powerful stuff, you know, isn't it?
Yeah. And sharing this powerful medicine and these solutions with our families and our spouses and whatnot is so important, because a lot of men want to support women, but they don't know how. They don't know what's going on. And, you know, if women are having trouble understanding it, then it's not surprising that their partners and their families are probably having difficulty too. So, you know, having some of these solutions and sharing them with our friends and family, I think is really important, and, you know, just really uplifting for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am on a mission to, you know, share this story with as many people, as diverse people as possible. You know, sex is no barrier, age is no barrier. You know, the sooner the better is if you ask me. But you know, so well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you joining me to share your story, your experiences, and for people to know that there is help out there, and we're spreading the word. And hopefully, you know, as you said, our mother's generation, you know, we're moving on, and for the next generation to follow, you know, for this to be a whole different dialogue that is so much more open and readily accepted.
Yes,
home.
that's my aim as well. Yes, a very noble objective.
Well,
I wholeheartedly support that.
Well, good. Thank you. So I'm so glad we're on the same page with this. And, you know, that's why you're here, because we're absolutely on the same page.
We certainly are.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for joining me all the way from Ottawa. And I know you're going to go probably and have a drop of lunch shortly. Something healthy, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. Yes. Something delicious and something healthy.
Well, I'll say goodbye for now. Thank you so much, Dinah. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you so much.
Take care, Philippa. It was my pleasure. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Bye for now.
Bye.